Thank you for coming here.
Cool. Well, thank you guys all for coming out and actually finding this room. Right, this is a really, really cool spot on campus. Before I talk about me, I want to talk about you guys. I think I already know the answer to the question, but how many of you guys have spent any time recently thinking about what you're going to do with your life? Caleb, raise your hand. There you go. Good. We all have, right? And this is like a normal thing. It's a healthy thing. And one of the things I want to kind of think about is just frame everything today as far as like, what am I going to do with my life? It's not just me, it's you, it's all of us. And we're constantly thinking about that. I still think about that to this moment. And when you think about what you're going to do with your life at your stage in your life, right, the whole like life arc where you guys are, you may think you know what you want to do. You may have no idea what you want to do. You may think you know, but you really don't know. All of that is just real. And one of the awesome things about where you guys are, just being in college, I like to think about being around all you guys all the time, is your futures, like what lies ahead. There's this whole exciting adventure ahead, and it's scary and exciting at the same time. Scary because you don't know. As much as you want to think you know and plan it all out, life makes things happen. But the fact that you don't know, if you just embrace it and say, okay, I got a journey ahead, right? I've got an adventure ahead, and what I should be doing right now in my life is just preparing for the adventure. Right, really, that's when I walk on campus. Like I have this like way of looking at the world. I'm looking at everybody like preparing for the adventure ahead. So no matter what class you're taking, whether you're a major, science major, non-science major, whatever it is, you're still preparing for the adventure. And so in class, one of the things I think you guys have seen, hopefully this semester, is I'm trying to coach you guys up. It's all about the adventure ahead. And so for me, right, segueing to like that guy, back when I was where you guys are, even just a little bit before, if I back up to when I was in high school, I had no idea that I would become a turtle ecologist or the turtle guy that everybody knows me as. I had no idea. Nobody knew. When I was in high school, I was basically, my only memories of high school, quite honestly, are football, basketball, baseball, girlfriend. I assume I went to class because I had to, right? But that was the reality. Like when you're in that part of your life, much more social. And so then when I had to make the decision about going to college and what to major in, I did not make an informed decision. I did what a lot of people do. I just did what my friends did. And so I decided to major in business. So I started off as a business major. I'm at Villanova University back in the 1980-somethings. Sitting in economics class, accounting class, and having this awful feeling hit me. What the heck am I doing with my life, right? It hit me like a ton of bricks. It was one of these things where I looked around and I felt lost. All these other people looked like they were interested in everything. I didn't care. I couldn't even like conjure up. I didn't give a damn. And so I had this feeling of like, uh-oh, what am I doing with my life? And so right from the beginning, I kind of got off track, right? As far as like ultimately getting to a happy place. But one of the really cool things I like to share with you guys, because you're right around this point where you're kind of figuring things out. After my first semester, after that fall semester, I came home and I had a conversation with my parents. Basically, Mom and Dad, I'm miserable, right? And my parents are awesome. And they basically said, okay, what makes you happy? It was literally that simple. What makes you happy? Who cares about the expectations? And I said, well, you know, gosh, when I was a kid, I remember like going out in the woods, right? I remember catching salamanders and playing around with turtles. That doesn't sound like a career, but that's what I like. And they said, well, major in biology. So I transferred to the, I attempted to transfer into the biology department in January, but I had to have a conversation with the department head. And the department head asked me a few basic questions. The most important one was why? Why do you want to leave the business school? That's what everybody wants to do, and come over here to science. And my answer was quite simply, well, I'm interested in this stuff. I'm curious about science. I've always liked it. I didn't say I want to be a doctor or a dentist or any of those types of professional things. that apparently that's what most people were doing. And in hindsight, my department head was really, I gave the right answer, like unintentionally, because he didn't want people who were just like another doctor. He wanted someone who's just genuinely curious about science. And then he said, come on in. And so once I transferred into the biology department, I suddenly was like, right? I found my spot. It was really, really hard, right? I had to make up for basically multiple semesters. I had to take calculus, chemistry, physics, and biology, right? All in the same semester multiple times, right? So the semester 1, semester 2 stuff. It was really hard, but I loved it, and that's how I knew this is right. So I adjusted course early on, thank God, and then I went through, everything was great. Once I got out of once I got to my senior year, I had to decide what's next. So I applied to grad school, I applied to vet school, all the things that like people were doing, and I got into vet school. I got into vet school early. Nobody gets into vet school early, so I have no idea why. But I was like, well, I guess that's what I'll do. So I went to vet school, and then during my first semester of vet school, I had this deja vu feeling like, ooh, I'm not happy here. I just wasn't interested in what everyone else was doing. I was supposed to be happy, right? Everybody says vet school is like this great thing. I wasn't happy. And so I thought, oh no, I screwed up again. But this time it's on a really, really big scale. So I decided what to do. So I just went back. Once again, that Christmas time conversation with mom and dad. Mom and dad, awesome again. They said, well, what do you want to do? And I went back to, oh yeah, the turtle stuff. I really like that. And they're like, well, go to grad school and like do that. So I applied to University of Miami to the biology department, and at the time they had a really, really good ecology and evolutionary biology program. The world's expert on amphibians and reptiles of Costa Rica. I applied there, and I got in. And so I just transferred from vet school to grad school, and I got on the fast track to a PhD. And so once I got there, everything was just, everything fell into place. So I did a PhD on gopher tortoise ecology, which led to all the stuff that we do today. But the key message I want to share with you guys is not my details, but think about the path that's ahead. There's going to be course corrections no matter what. You just have to have the guts to self-assess, take in the information, and adjust as you go. If you're doing that and you're adaptable, because that's what life is all about, then that can lead to happiness. And for me, this is happiness, right? So this is ultimately, I got here. I have no idea how, right? But ultimately, I'm here. So these are all pictures of me like absolutely in heaven. So what I do today is just joy. I don't even call it work. It's just what I would do anyway. So I'm going to talk about my story, like kind of getting all the way through this stuff, and just share with you cool turtle stuff and all that. So for me, I just like to put this collage on here because it's random turtle pictures that make me happy. Point being, we all have stuff that makes us happy. Whatever it is, awesome. If it makes you happy, good, period, right? Why? Don't overthink it, right? I just like turtles. I do, right? So I was like that, intermittently throughout my life, realizing that. But when I was in grad school, starting to like really get into this stuff, this is when reality hit me. Reality hit me as I'm learning about turtles. I'm realizing that turtle populations are not doing well. Lots of species are trending towards extinction. And at the present time, that number is literally over 50% of all the turtle species on Earth are threatened with extinction within our lifetime. If we just keep doing what we're doing, like us as a general species, humans, right? We're all heading down a path that's inevitable. To me, that's horrifying, right? I still remember that feeling. I feel it to this very moment. The things I love are disappearing. That has the ability to focus, right? So I suddenly had a mission, right? A purpose, which is also what life is about. You can end up being really happy if you've got purpose. Whatever that purpose is, focus on that, and then you're really living a life that has meaning and you're happy, even if it's dealing with a bad thing, right? So part of my strategy was then, okay, where can I make the most impact, right? Strategically planning my life. And this map is difficult to read, but it's color-coded. And what it's showing you is that you don't have the same number of species of turtles everywhere in the world. Shocking, right? There are certain places where there's high abundance of species. right? Like hotspots. So Southeast Asia, like right around Bangladesh, there's a hotspot. Most of those turtles are almost extinct because people eat them, right? But the number 2 biodiversity hotspot is right here in the southeastern US. So lots of species right here where my finger is. My finger is right on top of us, right? We're in that spot. So when I graduated from University of Miami, like I knew where I wanted to be, but I didn't necessarily have a job right here. So I took a couple of jobs, but I eventually had a job opportunity here at Santa Fe in 2003. And so when I saw the job opportunity, I went for it. Obviously I got it, so I'm here. But I was positioning myself where I could have maximum impact on the things I love. So we're basically right where that little blue dot is. And my strategy was to get close to this river, right? This river called the Santa Fe River, which flows into the Suwannee River and then out into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is basically our backyard river. This is less than 30 minutes from here. So it's just right here, awesome stuff, opportunity. So that's what I was zeroing in on. And so when I got here, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go out, jump in the water, and see the turtles. And there are places where you can literally jump into the water, swim with the snapping turtles, right? And so with this, I began what we call the Santa Fe River Turtle Project. It's now 16 years and going on this study, but it all started with me, a giant kid, playing with snapping turtles in his element. The key thing, though, was it's not just a me thing. It's not me and turtles. I love this stuff, and I want to share my passion and my joy. So the whole idea was, let's get people involved, because I can't just keep it to myself. It's like, hey, come on out, let's jump in the water and catch turtles, and off we go. So I basically, I see this river and the springs and everything as an outdoor classroom. So it's a fantastic place to just go out, jump in the water, and just start doing science. Doesn't matter if you're a science major or not, you learn what science is. Sometimes you may change your major, but nevertheless, you know what science is by doing it firsthand. So I don't care, science major, non-science major, it's all awesome. And the science that we do is real, right? It's not like we're just playing around. We publish stuff. So we've got 39 publications so far, and there's another dozen that are in various stages of preparation. And it's not just me as the author. You got me right there, but student, 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 right? So we've got students publishing things. And by the way, this guy's working on his PhD right now. This guy's got his master's degree. This guy has his PhD. So these are students from Santa Fe, from the class that you guys were in, that go on and do really awesome stuff. So it's all right here. Now, as people developed in my program, I'll call it a program, developing means, well, you finish up Santa Fe and you go on. Well, I didn't want to lose people because they're so great. So I decided to expand the project. So I said, it won't just be Santa Fe students, it'll be students. So when you go to UF, you can keep coming. And if you know any friends, invite them too. And while we're at it, local citizens, right? People who are interested, you're invited too. Faculty members, you're invited too. So this thing has become this big old team. And that's really where I'm really like at the most satisfied, when I see all these people working together on this common thing, having fun. It's 100% volunteer, so we know it's pure, right? It's literally this pure, we're just out there to do a good thing, the teamwork thing. Which brings me back to the whole sports thing, right? When I was growing up, it was all team sports. So I'm still I'm getting at that in this weird way. One of the other cool things about the project is it's simple, right? Besides being just in our backyard, it's simple, low tech. You don't have to have any advanced knowledge. You can just join in and let's go. And one of the simple things is some of the questions we ask, anybody can get, right? So we can ask questions about, hey, how are the turtles doing, right? Are the populations healthy or not? We all can understand that question. And then also, when we look at the habitats out, there's all different kinds of habitats. It's like this patchwork of habitats. And so naturally you'd think, where are the good habitats for the snapping turtles? And where are the good habitats for the cooters, right? So we're looking at how this habitat variation affects the story. Simple stuff. So as we work our way through, here's the framework that I'm going to basically kind of work through. I'm going to give you guys a little quick intro to the turtles, a little quick intro to the habitats, what we do, and then what we found out. It'll be kind of a timeline kind of approach. This is just for effect. Lots of turtles, right? So we've got 11 different turtle species, native turtle species, right here in the Santa Fe River. 11 is a big important number for context in turtles. There's less than a handful of places on the planet right now where you could go and find that many turtle species living together in one spot. So that whole biodiversity hotspot thing is like, it's real. So we got 4 different species that you can see basking on logs. We got 2 different types of snapping turtle species, 3 different little turtles that people think are baby snapping turtles, but they're not. Some weirdo turtles like Florida softshell turtles and chicken turtles. Lots of stuff. What I want to focus on is a couple of them just to kind of give us like a little bit of depth. The iconic turtle we have in our system is the Swanee alligator snapping turtle. And one reason why it's iconic is because it's huge. These things, the biggest one we've gotten is about 130 pounds. This one right here is about 130 pounds. This guy right here is a student who was in our zoology class 10 years ago. Once again, another Santa Fe student. This turtle is one of those turtles that's a protected species. They are vulnerable to harvest, like illegal harvest. People eat them, which is awful. So it's illegal to touch them unless you're doing research. If you're permitted, if you're working with me, you can do it. But everybody else cannot touch these things. They take 20 years to reach sexual maturity. So if someone were to take that thing home and eat it, and they're hungry 6 hours later, well, that turtle is not replaced in your entire lifetime, even if that. So these things is literally hands off. So it's a protected species that we're trying to study. Now, the other iconic thing about it is the species. It's called the Swanee alligator snapping turtle. Swanee meaning it's only found in the Swanee River and the Santa Fe River. That spot right there, that's the world distribution, which is different than all of the alligator snapping turtles that are in Louisiana, the Mississippi River, and even in the Florida Panhandle. It's a genetically distinct species. What's really cool is who decided that it's a new species? People from here, right? So the person who was the lead author on the paper in 2014 that basically described that this Swanee alligator snapping turtle is different than all the others is that guy right there, another Santa Fe student from 2004. This is the guy who's working on his PhD. He'll get it probably in the springtime. This guy's been the state herpetologist since 1970, so he's goofy, but he's like a really, really bigwig. But he's the guy who taught us so much stuff. But nevertheless, this is a lot of the personal story behind the name. So now we got this really special species right here. The other snapping turtle species is the common snapping turtle, and that's found throughout eastern North America. These guys are also super awesome. They're also protected, so you can't touch them as well. So both snappers you got to leave them alone. People like to eat both, unfortunately. I put this picture just to make a point. This is Gilchrist Blue Springs a while ago before the platform came down. This is one of our study sites, and we catch a lot of common snapping turtles in there. Do you think these people have any idea there's common snapping turtles in there? No, it's best that they don't know. But here's the thing. The common snapping turtles never attack people, like 0. So as much as people think they're monsters, they're completely harmless, unless you pick one up. And then they're scared to death, and they're going to attack you out of defense. So good for them. So I've stepped on these things in the water. I've caught tons of these things in the water. I've never, ever, ever been attacked. So it's not the monster that people think they are. Now, this is also not a monster. This is an adorable little turtle that's full grown, the size of my fist, little loggerhead musk turtle. This is one we need to be aware of because it's a real important part of our system. It's a little turtle that basically its primary food is snails, also crayfish and insects. And they got this big head for crunching stuff. So a little turtle with a big head. So this is part of an important story that's going to play out. Another important turtle is the river cooter. I call it the ambassador of the Santa Fe River because if you go visit the river, this is the one you see basking on logs. Like 80% of the basking turtles are this one, right? So this is the one that greets everybody. You know it's a river cooter because there's always going to be a black V right there. All the other basking turtles have other stuff going on. That black V is your telltale sign. The other cool thing about this being the ambassador is they're big. Right? The females can be up to 20 pounds. So this is the biggest basking turtle in North America. So it's big, abundant, just awesome, right? And they get big and abundant by eating vegetation. So they're herbivores. Now, as far as the habitats, right, let's think about what they eat and what's there. The Santa Fe, it flows from east to west, and it all comes out of swamp water. And so swamp water naturally is going to have decomposing vegetation that'll lead to this tea-colored water. So it's basically tannic, right? So it's literally dark tea. And it's like this the whole upper part of the Santa Fe. And then the Santa Fe disappears underground. If you go to Olino State Park, you'll see the whole river go disappear underground. A few miles later, it comes popping back up. And now, when it comes popping back up, you've got all these little dots right here representing springs, which are places like this. So you start to have all this awesome, beautiful, clear water contribute to the dark tea-colored water. Amazing crystal clear habitats, which then merge with that dark water. And then that helps to dilute the dark water so that in these parts of the river, oftentimes it's clear enough so that sunlight can get down and plants can grow. So you've got this menu of habitats that's laid out there for turtles. So that's a cool thing to sort of have in your mind as you attack the questions. Now, how do we study the turtles? Remember I said it's simple? So basically, we go out, we catch turtles every way we can. Most of it is snorkeling. So we jump in the water and you swim after turtles. I tell everybody, don't think too hard. It's kind of like you're in college, don't think too hard. But see turtle, catch turtle. That's literally what I tell people, right? And it's cool because you get underwater and suddenly the world is completely different. You don't hear the same sounds. You feel things. You feel what the water temperature's like. And you also start to get it as far as this is the turtle's world. This is what they've got. And you empathize. You can't help it, but kind of like you're in their world. Now, we're catching them, but we're still in their world kind of engaging with them. And so we catch everything. Here's even an alligator snapping turtle, which is like got the same size head as that guy right there. So we catch everything we see. Sometimes we have to set traps to catch stuff that may be out, like come out at night. So you set traps in the evening and check in the morning. Here's another alligator snapper. All the turtles, we measure a whole bunch of different dimensions on them. We weigh them. The females, at certain times of the year, they'll have eggs, so I can actually palpate them. So you can just feel under here, and you feel for like little ping pong balls. And I can actually get good reproductive data by just feeling for that. Also, I can kind of give the rest of a health assessment while I've got the turtle in hand. So all kinds of additional information just by having turtles in hand. Every turtle gets its own individual mark. So sometimes we put holes in like a special combination around the perimeter of the shell, or we'll insert little pit tags like you put in your dog or your cat, so you can have like a barcode scanner kind of thing, detect that. Bottom line is every single turtle that we catch and work up gets its own ID number, because we track that individual, right? Because you get histories on individuals. And the greatest part of all is all the turtles go back, right? So within that same day you've caught the turtles, they go back. You go home after a long day, all the turtles are back. And we've worked up over 9,000 individual turtles over the last 16 years. Many of these turtles have been caught 10, 20, 30 times. So the total number of captures is tens of thousands. So the database is huge. So what have we learned with that database? Well, first things first, most basic question, during the first part of the study, between 2004 and 2012, that's an important year, 2012. Populations generally look pretty healthy. So it's kind of like things are good, kind of a simple answer to people. This is a picture of like, this is what things looking good would be. For example, with river cooters, if we actually just plot out how many individuals you have for the different size classes, so you got little turtles, medium, big, large, right? What we see is we had lots of little turtles, so reproduction is happening, adding into the population. Also lots of big turtles too. That tells us that apparently harvest is not a problem here. All right, so people tend to be leaving them alone for the most part. Snapshot, healthy, right? Now, we didn't have like this, tremendously like successful outlook because there were still conservation concerns. There's still people who are illegally harvesting, right? So you'd find some of these traps attached to basking logs. A lot of people drive their boats too fast and they hit turtles. So the injuries, I won't show you the awfulness, but there's some really disgustingly terrible injuries that these turtles have. And it's not just one or two. We have over 1,000 turtles that have injuries like this. And this is obviously something that's caused by people driving too fast. So it's fixable. But these are concerns, right? This is 2012. The other cool thing we learned was, gosh, these springs, they're really important. They're more than just fun. They're really important to the turtles. One thing we did was we looked at like how many turtles do you have in this area where the water has lots of plants versus where there's not as many. And our population estimates were crazy. 4 times more turtles, right, as far as density here than there. So when springs add clear water to the river, that really enhances habitat in the river. So if you were to take springs away, what would happen to turtle abundance here? It would drop by a lot. So springs are important. Simple message. Another springs are important message is, gosh, we found where babies are. We found nursery habitat. There are certain springs where that's where you find the baby cooters, the baby snapping turtles, the baby yellow belly sliders. So you're actually like really kind of have some this appreciation, at least I was right around here, that like, gosh, these springs are really important. Now, here's where the story shifts. Right around the same time, I was also looking at historical data. These are basically groundwater levels. So not the stuff we see, but the stuff below us, right? So water levels have been measured with, like in wells, right? Throughout northern Florida, since some back into the 30s, right? 30s, 40s, all the decades. And regardless of which well you're looking at, the trend is always going down. There's some wiggle up and down, which would represent maybe a rainy year versus a dry year. So that's the wiggle. But if you factor in everything, what's the general trend? Wiggling down, down, down. What does that mean? Well, underground, right? Here's a diver in that place. There's less water in the tank below us. All right, that's our aquifer. This is what that means on the surface. There's less water coming up out of the aquifer up through these springs. So this is the window right here down into that world. So less water underground, less spring water coming up. The data are just overwhelmingly disturbing, right? So as I'm processing this, at the same time realizing springs are really important, in 2011 is my year where I'm putting it together and getting, I'm starting to formulate predictions, right? Because I think I know what's going on. So I was hypothesizing that we're going to see some population declines. It's kind of a vague sort of prediction. It's going to be bad for turtles. And also, even more vague, I got this weird feeling in my stomach. The system, something's going to happen, right? I don't know what, but something strange is going to happen because we've got this strange thing happening in this ecosystem. So first thing we saw, for example, was in 2012 at one of our springs, which used to be the only first magnitude spring in Alachua County, like over 100 million gallons coming out per day. It stopped flowing for the first time in history. It stopped, dried up. That was temporary. It's flowing a little bit today, but this is the first time it stopped. That period of stopped water flow meant water was stagnant and dissolved oxygen was 0. Why would that matter? Well, these little snails right here, they're sensitive to dissolved oxygen. They died, right? Done. Why would that matter to turtles? Well, that's the primary food for loggerhead musk turtles. So if we look at like how many turtles we used to get, and then they died off, and then, oh, there goes the food, there goes the turtle. So we started to see a decline, a severe decline in the loggerhead musk turtles. We haven't seen any in a while. And then, I'm going to keep the sound. In late summer of 2013, the real weird thing happened. This is a YouTube video that a friend of mine sent me. I was back home in Massachusetts visiting my family. It was like summer. And I got this email, and the question was, what's going on with the turtles at Blue Springs? I watched the video and I thought to myself, I have no idea. And it wasn't just that email. I got, within the span of a day or two, texts and emails and phone calls, because I'm like the turtle guy, I'm supposed to know. And I got this feeling, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? I'm in Massachusetts. So it was such a compelling issue that got on a plane and I flew back down here because I had to go see for myself what people are talking about, all these turtles. So here's Gilchrist Blue, right? That's the spot. And when I went to Gilchrist Blue Springs, remember it's like late summer, there's tons of people there, right? Crawling with people, all these turtles. The turtle guy shows up and then people hound me with like questions, right? So all the while they're asking me questions, I have zero answers. So all I'm doing is basically smiling and nodding, right? Not saying anything because I'm ignorant, I don't know. It's a very unsettling feeling. So what I did at first was I said, okay, there's this boardwalk, right, that goes along the spring run that goes out to the river. And we've been walking this boardwalk for lots of years before, so I knew what normal was, right? We see 10 or 20 turtles looking straight down. My first time out there, I counted about 300. They were moving around, so plus or minus, some number, huge number. The next week, 300. The next week, and then September 3rd, I thought I was getting good at counting, so I added like 351. Bottom line, more, and I still don't know what's going on. There's just still a lot of turtles. So the next thought was, well, to get more information, we got to catch them. So I gathered up a huge group of people, about 50 people, right, that whole team thing. And I said, okay, on this day, we're jumping in the river, in the spring, and we're catching them all. So we dropped a net at the end of the run so the turtles didn't go out. And then everybody jumped in and started catching turtles and brought them to me. And so here I am. This is the goofy face that if you really know me, this is familiar, right? It's goofy and it's naive, and this is wonderful at 9 a.m., right? First couple turtles coming in, I'm thinking, this is so cool, lots of turtles, right? Well, here I am at 11 p.m. Still, lots of turtles. And guess what? We weren't done. I had only taken a 15-minute break just to eat a granola bar between then. And then all these lights in the back, these are from pickup trucks. So friends with pickup trucks had to come, and all the additional turtles we had caught were in those pickup trucks waiting to be processed. So I was so incredibly stressed out right there because for the sake of the turtles, take the measurements, put them back, take them back, right? I'm trying to like process, but it was just a nonstop thing. We didn't finish until 5 a.m. the next day. It was 20 straight hours of measure. And I also learned that these are my friends. You know how someone's your friend? They stay with you until 5 a.m. and they're not getting anything out of it except for the same thing you're working on, right? So this was an epic day that I'll never forget. So drove home and the sun's coming up and I'm thinking, what the heck was that all about? The next afternoon when I woke up, all right, I tallied up everything and we caught 497 turtles that day. Almost all of them were river cooters. So that's the first thing I could say to everybody. It's one species that's kind of doing something. I added everything up and I estimated density. It's like 1,300 turtles per acre, giant number. We weighed them all. The weight of all those turtles was 12,000 pounds per acre. That's like 6 tons per acre. This is a number that's bigger than you ever see anywhere. Like people were just blown away by the amount of turtle in this site. So I quantified there's a lot. Still haven't learned much. So why did it happen? One of the hypotheses people had when I was initially visiting, most people were saying, isn't this wonderful? Look at all the turtles. And while I'm smiling, I'm thinking, no, this is bad. I had this it's like apocalyptic feel. There's like too many here. People were thinking that it was all about reproduction. The turtles are here to reproduce and nest. Well, I knew it wasn't that because it was happening after the nesting season. But I still palpated all the turtles. Not a single one had any eggs. So that hypothesis gets rejected real easy. The hypothesis that actually was the one that was supported was the obvious one. They're in there to eat. It's all about food. If you'd watch them each day, they come in the morning in massive numbers, gobble up vegetation. End of the day, they go back out to the river. That was the pattern. You could literally swim with these things, right? It was like herds of these like cows with shells walking along the bottom, and they're just munching. They're hungry, right? so hungry that they actually ate the vegetation down to the point where it's almost gone. And so by October, what do you think the turtles did? They left. So our boardwalk counts went back down to normal. And I remember walking around in December doing that count thinking, wow, that was so weird, right? That was surreal. Here's what's cool. It happened again, right? In the spring, all the vegetation was mostly hydrilla, which is an invasive plant which grows fast. Hydrilla grew back in the meantime, and the turtles don't eat much during the wintertime anyway. So they got hungry in the spring, there was food again, they came back, munched it all down again. So it was like boom, and then boom again. But why did this never happen before? And I know it hasn't happened before because it's such an epic, conspicuous event. I know people up and down the river, their families have been there for generations. No one's ever seen this before. Well, it goes back to this whole problem with the spring flow, right? Blue Springs is basically right around where that line is. And so the springs that are up, like the higher elevation springs, are the ones that are showing the declines in spring flow the most. So Hornsby, which we already showed, and then Poe Springs, there's less clear water coming into that river. Now, that means this situation right here where you've got dark water coming down, if you have a storm like we did in 2012 in June, right, Tropical Storm Debby dumped a lot of rain up here. This dark water came down and it overwhelmed the lower part of the Santa Fe, so it became dark. That in and of itself is not unusual. After heavy rains, this happens, but it usually takes a couple weeks, maybe a couple of months for the water to clear back up because the springs clear it up. But what we saw was 2 years of darkness. This is way more than normal. And with 2 years of darkness, the plants that need the sunlight, they're going to die. So we saw the die-off of plants, the river cooter food, right? But there was still lots of food in blue at the time. So what would you do if you're a vegetarian? You would go there, right? So they were all kind of going to that spot. Now, here's what's also cool. We had so many turtles we had marked, and we kind of knew where they were in the past. The turtles we got in that big giant batch, right, came from places here all the way to there. All these red dots represent a place a turtle was caught in the past. So we had the population squeezed into one spot. They were starving. This is a sign that things are not good, right? A very conspicuous sign. Logical question, was Blue Springs the only place where food would be? Well, there's one other good spot. Over here, the Ichetucknee River. Ichetucknee is still beautiful. Lots of vegetation, lots of good habitat. So the obvious question would be, well, do we see more turtles in Ichetucknee also, right? Do you have a bunch going there? So we organized a team in March of 2014 when that second increase was happening at Blue. And we jumped in there. Once again, a huge number of people, big old team, catch all the turtles, work them all up. And what did we see? The number of river cooters, right, was twice as many as our baseline data from 2007. So we did see that expected, right, increase. More specifically, we actually had evidence that some of those turtles that were here migrated from the Santa Fe. So we had 39 females and 20 males that were actually marked and captured in the Santa Fe. We knew who you were, who ended up there. So there's a shift of turtles, right? Makes sense. Now, at this point, I had a question. Do we keep doing all this stuff? It's a lot of work, you know, organizing all these people. As I was processing that question, my answer became apparent. When the river did clear up, and the spot where there used to be all the plants, this is what grew back. This is the same spot. So suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, now it's an algae-dominated river. And so the question was, well, how does that affect the turtles? Right? You can literally watch the turtles. Now they're eating this stuff. That has to have some effect. So a whole new avenue of questions, basically, how does this affect behavior, health, growth, reproduction? How does it affect everything? So we have to keep going because lots of questions. So we continued sampling Ichetucknee. We still do like annual surveys, and the immigration continued, right? So the river cooters kept leaving the Santa Fe, more and more going to the Ichetucknee. So the number of turtles in Ichetucknee has continued to increase. Turtles in the Santa Fe decreasing. But this decrease right here, there's two things to think about. even though the numbers are dropping, the density is still pretty high, like 150 turtles per kilometer, still a lot. So you're losing some, but you still have a bunch that are staying. Kind of weird. The other thing, this decline also is indicative of a problem with reproduction. Blue Springs was also one of our important nursery sites. Remember that 2006 to 2012, thing? So we used to get a lot of babies, right? Well, after that, in 2015 and on, we've gotten only a handful of babies. Something's going on with reproduction. So the nursery site is no longer a nursery site. So now our questions involve, gosh, what's going on with the health of those females? So the females that have decided to stay, not leave. So now I've gotten involved with, there's like the head veterinarian at FWC. She's involved in trying to help us figure out health-related questions. We're going deeper and deeper, trying to peel away the layers of what's happening. But it's all really, it's really unsettling, right? Because it's what kind of bad? Speaking of bad, what about these poor little loggerhead musk turtles? Now this is their world, right? Look at that. Their populations have declined. They're half of what they used to be. The explanation here, I think, is a little bit more straightforward. The snails that they like to eat, not just in Hornsby Spring, but throughout the river, populations are way down. So less food when you're a dietary specialist, that's going to affect your populations. The ones that are still around have shifted to eating more insects and things like that. So there's still some there, but not as many as there used to be. We're losing stuff, right? Another question, what about those snappers, right? We've got those two awesome big old snappers. By the way, they're omnivores. They eat everything, right? Everything in that food web is food for them. So they're sitting at the top. And somehow this is going to work its way up the food web and they will be affected. We just don't know yet. We're working on it. So we're out there still catching these snappers, trying to get more data. This is a very active area of questioning right now. So we're looking at things like diet. We're looking at health parameters, trying to figure out what their story is. So it's basically a ... to be continued. It's also an opportunity for you guys to jump in at this phase, right? There's active questions happening right now. Now, almost towards the end, and one of the things I want to mention is a lot of us are probably thinking, well, what's causing all this, right? Besides there's less spring flow. It's all about water in general, right? It's all about water in our springs, basically water that's in the aquifer, that whole system. We're seeing declines in two ways. One is declines in quantity, as we've said, like there's less water coming up. That one's easy to understand. When we use water, this is not other people, but all of us collectively every day, where does that water come from? The aquifer, right? So we are sucking water out of the aquifer. Out of sight, out of mind, you don't know there's a problem, right? But the collective impact of humanity here is sucking water out, and that's going to mean less water. That's a very intuitive thing. So if we were all to say, okay, how about if we all start being more mindful with the way we use water? If we all just kind of cut back in reasonable ways, we could do that, right? It's a matter of like acknowledging the problem and then just doing something. But that's empowering, right? If we're part of the problem, I actually get super excited when I find out I'm part of a problem, right? As soon as I realize that, I'm like, you know what? That means I could do something to fix it, right? It's just a matter of changing my behavior and I can turn that into a positive. And if you get a lot of people doing that, right, we can actually make an impact on this variable, right? But that's only half of the story or part of the story. The other part of the story you have to consider, which most people don't, is the quality of the water too, right? It's the invisible stuff. So things like dissolved oxygen, you can't see that, right? Nitrate, pesticides, herbicides, the chemicals that are in the water, you don't see that. But these things have huge impacts on this whole ecosystem. A lot of the impacts are still not well understood. There's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of people in this area who are really keen on trying to understand it. But we all acknowledge that these are variables that are really important. And so just from the outside, the most common sense approach would be to let's try to minimize these effects, even if we don't know completely how they ultimately have negative impacts. So dissolved oxygen, what's the dissolved oxygen problem? How do we make sure that dissolved oxygen stays high? Well, one thing is avoid those time periods when the water gets stagnant, like at Hornsby Spring, right? So this could actually be related to that. But also, when we think about the way wells pump water out of the ground, out of the aquifer, in that aquifer, it's like a water tank, right? If you suck water off of the top part of that water tank, that's the newest water that's actually come in, right, with rainfall. That's got lots of dissolved oxygen. The water at the bottom of the tank that's been sitting there the longest, over time, it loses dissolved oxygen. It's just a function of age. Well, if we suck water off the top, right, for our purposes, and then the only water that's available to come out of certain springs is the bottom water, the older water that comes up, that's going to have low dissolved oxygen. So it's not just the amount of water, but where we suck it from, right? It's kind of a strange idea, but if you suck from the top versus the bottom, it matters. Nitrates, this is the classic thing we think about, like septic tanks, and we think about, the way we use fertilizers and things like that. This is something that people latched onto as a big problem a few decades ago. What we're learning now is it's much more complex. Right? This is one problem, it's not the only one. Right? So we've expanded to it's more than just a nitrate issue. Yes, that's part of it. Dissolved oxygen is a really big thing too. Pesticides and herbicides from the way people use land. Right? Whatever those chemicals are, those are going to go into the soil and then down into the water and then into the system. So it's another thing we have to be mindful of. So we got to be much smarter, right, with the way we use chemicals and think about where these things go. And when I say we, I mean all of us, right? It's us, it's people who farm, small scale, large scale. Anytime any human being is using these things anywhere in this area, it's going to go down into the aquifer and it's going to have an impact. So we all just have to embrace like the reality and then say, okay, what can we do, right? So it's a lot of just work on this, work on that, work on that. My concern is that a lot of people have not accepted that there's even a problem. So a lot of my work involves using turtles to maybe kind of like catch people's like attention. The turtles are telling us there's a problem. The moment we acknowledge a problem, then we can get to work, right? But we're still in the acknowledgement stage for most people. So that's kind of, I try to multiply my effect by sharing with you guys. You can share, and I'm counting on you guys doing most of the work, right? That's the only way we do it. It's a we thing, collectively. And then I think I'm going to end right there with a simple thank you for bearing with me and listening to all my stuff. But if you guys have any questions, we've got some time. I'll answer anything. I've got 16 years of stuff that didn't make it onto there, so fire away.